Last year, a nation watched an annual celebration ritual, the running of the Boston Marathon, and what should have been a celebration turned into horror as bombs exploded at the finish line, causing serious injury and death at a time and place that's traditionally a celebration of accomplishment. Almost immediately, however, we also saw acts of incredible selflessness and heroism, and as hours and days elapsed, we began to hear the inspiring stories of the survivors of that nightmare in our nation's history. Our speaker today, Heather Abbott, is one of those survivors. She was struck by shrapnel from the second bomb, and her left foot was severely injured. Two strangers, Matt Chatham, former New England Patriots lineman, and his wife, Erin, carried Heather to safety to an ambulance. She underwent 3 surgeries in 4 days before making the difficult decision to undergo an amputation of her left leg. 4 months after the bombing, Heather returned to work, and over this past year, she has returned to her life, including paddleboarding, running, and my favorite, wearing high heels. I know you can go online and see YouTube clips of Heather with those high heels looking incredibly chic. Heather has used this adversity to give back to others and has become a certified peer counselor for the National Amputee Coalition. It's my very great pleasure to welcome a speaker who has such a timely and inspirational story about overcoming unexpected adversity to address our graduates today. And before she comes to the podium, I should let you know, she tells me she's never been to West Virginia before, so let's show her what a mountaineer welcome is like.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here today to celebrate your accomplishment with you. As you know, I came down from Boston, and it's my first trip to West Virginia, so I will do my best to pronounce my R's. But it's really great to be here with you today to celebrate your graduation. What a long and trying road this has probably felt like, but at last, here you are. As college graduates, there's no doubt that you're used to success and influencing outcomes with hard work and determination. What valuable traits to have as you begin to navigate through your adult life and your new careers. You see, as you've already experienced to varying degrees, life is full of adversity where those traits I mentioned come in particularly handy. Along with many wonderful moments like college graduation, life is sure to also bring some unexpected disappointments, some setbacks, and some twists that will challenge your ability to persevere. Sometimes we can anticipate them: a failed test, a divorce in our family, a missed job opportunity. And sometimes we can't: an unexpected medical diagnosis, a car accident, or in my case, an extreme example, a bomb. A year ago last April, I was struck by shrapnel from a bomb that was detonated by 2 terrorists at the Boston Marathon. As a result of injury to my left leg, it was amputated below the knee, making me an amputee for the rest of my life. I'd like to tell you about how I came from lying in a hospital bed just over a year ago with a brand new amputation to running the last half mile of the Boston Marathon just about a month ago and standing before you today. Upon reflection on this past year, I've determined that there were 3 major factors that contributed to my successful recovery thus far. And I believe these factors can be applied to other adverse situations that we will all face. I'll point them out to you as I tell you about my story, with the hope that you'll be able to use them in your own lives. Last April 15th, on Patriots' Day, celebrated by the state of Massachusetts and referred to by Bostonians as Marathon Monday, I embarked on an annual tradition with 6 of my friends. We headed 90 minutes north to Boston from our homes in Newport, Rhode Island, and went to Fenway Park to see the Red Sox game. In typical fashion, we left a little early to beat the crowds walking over to the finish line, watching runners complete the Boston Marathon. We had planned to meet our friends who lived in the city at the usual spot, a restaurant called Forum, which is just before the finish line. It's usually a fun day, the beginning of spring, and among our last jaunts out of Newport before the tourist season begins in our own seaside city. The 7 of us got split up on our walk over to Forum. While 4 were already inside the restaurant, 3 of us lagged behind and were standing just outside of the front entrance when we heard the first explosion. I turned to the direction of the noise, and I instinctively knew that something was terribly wrong. I saw smoke and people running. I heard screaming. It reminded me of footage I had seen from the 9/11 attacks. But a mere 12 seconds later, before I had a chance to react, I heard a loud popping noise to my right, and I was catapulted from outside on the sidewalk through the front doors of the restaurant by the force from the second bomb, feeling as though my foot were on fire. I was in excruciating pain. I saw blood and glass and smoke everywhere. As I lie on the ground, people were literally running for their lives away from the direction of the bomb and right by me. Luckily, a couple helped and stopped me. Not knowing whether or not another bomb would go off or what would happen next, the couple risked their own lives to help save me and ensure that I got into an ambulance safely. After 3 surgeries and attempts to save my left leg, doctors recommended amputation, which would give me the best chance for resuming the active, independent life that I was used to. 1 week after the bombing, my left leg was amputated below the knee, and I was forced to discover what would be my new normal. That's where the first factor comes in, the ability to recognize and accept what can't be changed. This may be the most difficult one for many. I was an accounting major in my undergraduate studies, and early on, I had expressed an ability to approach situations in a logical manner, which helped out a lot in this situation. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I didn't lie awake some nights, wondering what if, or why me? What if I hadn't been separated from the friends who had already made it inside the restaurant safely? What if we hadn't left the Sox game early? Why did this happen to me when none of my other friends or people surrounding me weren't hurt? After a short period of time of asking myself these questions and realizing that there were no answers, I recognized that going over these proposed scenarios in my head was a pointless activity. What had happened happened, and there was absolutely nothing I could do to change it. I knew that I needed to accept that fact and moved on to figuring out what to do about it. I was never going to get my leg back, so I needed to determine how to get my life back as best I could without it. I had seen other amputees before, but I really didn't know much about them and what they were and weren't capable of doing. I saw people wearing prosthetic legs, but I had no idea what the legs were like to walk on and what they were capable of, and I had no idea of the tremendous cost associated with them. I hadn't a clue as to where to begin to learn about these things. I had lots of questions. Would I walk with a limp? Would I be able to wear skirts and dresses? Was it painful to wear a prosthesis? Were a few among the many. This is where the second factor comes in, relying on the support of others. I could give you example after example of help and support that I received from friends and family and people I've never met. By way of financial support, my friends and family held fundraisers for me that raised thousands of dollars to help with the cost of my future prosthetic legs and medical bills. Further, Governor Deval Patrick established what is known as the One Fund, to which millions of Americans and people all over the world contributed millions of dollars to be dispersed among the bombing victims, easing the burden of medical expenses. And for us 16 amputees, the outrageous cost of prosthetics we faced over our lifetimes. Perhaps some of the most valuable support came in the form of other amputees. The hospital arranged for other amputees to visit me. They walked into my hospital room with barely a hitch in their step. They told me about the different prosthetics available for swimming, running, biking, and even wearing high heels. They told me about the process of getting fitted for and learning to walk on prosthetic legs, and showed me that there was hope. Everybody wanted to help and made themselves available for future questions. Considering the audience, I thought I should tell you about some of the incredible support that I received from my physical therapist, Dara, and my occupational therapist, Samantha, at Spaulding Rehabilitation Hospital in Boston, where I stayed as inpatient for 2 weeks following my amputation. At one point during my stay, I was asked to give a press conference at the hospital, given the public nature of the incident. I hadn't realized how much Dara and Sam had paid attention to get to know me. They escorted me to the press conference wearing t-shirts that said Heather Strong in pink lettering. They knew it was my favorite color. While Sam was helping me get ready for the event, I explained to her that I planned to wear my purple dress and tan high heel. I only needed one shoe at the time. I hadn't thought about how difficult that may be in crutches. After looking at me like I was crazy for about a second, rather than tell me it was out of the question, Sam made what she said was her first crutch height adjustment for the high heels and told me to practice it in the hallway and make sure I didn't embarrass myself by falling in front of the cameras. In retrospect, I suppose that would have been embarrassing for her too, considering she went along with it, but she took a chance on me, allowing me to be myself. She knew I could do it. About a week into my time at Spaulding, the Red Sox events manager contacted me. They wanted me to throw out the first pitch at an upcoming game. This was an exciting opportunity that I definitely wanted to partake in. There was only one problem. I hadn't thrown a ball since 6th grade gym class, and I wasn't very good at it then. Now I was to stand in front of thousands of people on one leg and throw the ball to a Red Sox player? How was I going to do this without completely embarrassing myself? Dara, my physical therapist, came to the rescue. She knew of my girly nature, often teasing me for my love of all things pink, and always made up face from my hospital bed. Dara had a plan. We were going to incorporate practicing pitching with physical therapy. She arranged for me and another patient to practice throwing and catching using our crutches until we were confident that I could do it on game day. Several days later, Dara accompanied me out on the mound. I handed her one of my crutches, and I threw the ball on one leg to Jared Saltalamacchia, and 30,000 people stood and cheered when he caught it. Dara and Sam remain friends of mine, and I'll always remember their out-of-the-box thinking and dedication to my recovery as a tremendous support for me. While I was in the hospital, I did an interview with Anderson Cooper that aired on CNN. During the interview, we talked about summers in Newport, and he asked me what I had been looking forward to doing this summer that I wouldn't be able to. I told him that I loved to go stand-up paddleboarding in the ocean near my house. And this year, my friends and I had planned to sign up for a yoga paddleboarding class. Clearly, I wasn't going to be able to do that. But some employees at a company in San Diego who made paddleboards had heard the interview. Shortly after I arrived home from the hospital in May, a 12-foot paddleboard arrived at my front door from the company's owners. They donated the $1,500 board to me and wanted to see a picture of me on it last summer. At the time, this seemed ridiculous. I had only one leg. I graciously thanked them for the board, but explained that there was no way I would be paddleboarding last summer. I wouldn't even be ready to be fitted for my first prosthetic leg until June. The paddleboard sat in my basement all summer long. I thought about it often and listened as my friends made plans to go boarding at the beach. I worked hard last summer at learning to walk on my new prosthetic leg. With the help of my outpatient physical therapists and folks at my gym who donated their time, I learned to walk on it with 2 crutches, and then one, and then a cane, and eventually was able to balance on my own. In late August, I was finally ready to be fitted for my waterproof leg, which would make taking a shower much easier and would allow me to go swimming. The swimming part didn't mean much to me, as the summer was coming to an end, but I did have the nag of that paddleboard sitting in my basement. So, on one of the last weekends in August, my friends and I headed to the beach with my paddleboard on the roof, and I stood on the paddleboard in the ocean and paddled around just 4 months after having my leg amputated. I wouldn't have done that had it not arrived at my house 3 months earlier with the expectation of a photograph. I have many examples of help I was offered, which pushed me to do things I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. And since then, my collection of legs has grown. By October, I was the proud owner of 4 prosthetic legs, one for everyday use, a waterproof one for showers and swimming, a running leg, and my favorite, the high heel leg, which allows me to wear 4-inch high heels. I was beginning to feel more comfortable as an amputee, and had impressed even myself with my ability to bounce back and resume as normal a life as I could. Since my injury was such a public one, there was lots of interest in my progress. National media was following me throughout the year and airing stories on my remarkable recovery, one of which was a CNN piece which featured my high heel leg. Women all over the country began to contact me through social media sites, friends and relatives, or via the fundraising website that my cousin had established. Many were amputees or were anticipating an amputation and wanted to talk to me. This is where the third factor, and perhaps the most important one, comes in: the opportunity to pay it forward. It's now my turn to give other amputees hope, the way that they did for me over a year ago. I decided to become a certified peer counselor through the National Amputee Coalition, and I'm now called upon by hospitals to visit with others, mostly women, to show them the ropes. I'm able to walk into their hospital room and say, I was exactly where you are now, just 1 year ago. And look at me now. What a great feeling for both them and for me. And when I pull that high heel leg out of what's fondly referred to as my leg bag, their faces light up at the possibility of getting a piece of their former lives back. And I'm able to give them hope, as others did for me. As you begin your lives in what is often referred to as the real world, I hope that you'll keep my 3 factors to overcoming adversity in mind. First, recognize what you can't change and accept it. Second, allow yourself to rely on the support of others. And third, seize the opportunity to pay it forward. As health professionals, I also hope you'll remember my stories about Dara and Sam, and always keep in mind that you have the ability to influence someone's recovery throughout your careers in the general health field. Remember to get to know who your patients are, find out what's important to them, and think out of the box to find solutions to put them on the road to recovery. I wish you the very best of luck in your future endeavors and congratulate you on your tremendous accomplishment. Thank you.